Well, Allan Buckwell joins me now, and he's the Director for the Nutrient Recovery and Reuse Project for the RISE Foundation, a frequent visitor to the annual forum. It's now the 9th. Yes. Now, so tell me, this year we're looking at the read across from Sustainable Development Goals through to their implementation, and to, of course, the issues that we look at every year of bringing agriculture and the economy together, how we feed that growing world and do it sustainably. I know that you've been involved in looking at a new report into the think tank issues that you look at. You were sharing that, I know, last night and today. Tell me the key message that you have for the forum this year, Allan.
The key message is that agriculture has always been part of the circular economy. Farmers have always cycled animal manures back to crops. And what we're saying is that there's scope to do a lot more of that. We're inputting a lot of nutrients in the form of mineral fertilizers and animal feed that's imported. We could displace quite a bit of that nutrient if we recovered the wastes, processed them usually, and then they can be put back on the land to fertilize crops. And that would reduce pollution. It would make us slightly less reliant on imported phosphorus, for example, and imported natural gas to make nitrogenous fertilizers. So there's a lot of wins out there, and the question is how to take that recycling process another stage further, and there are things that can be done.
What sort of things? Because we were talking about it in the forum today in the sense of changing societal behaviour, improving crop and animal nutrient use efficiencies. I mean, you know, there are obstacles to overcome.
There are, because this is difficult material. This is waste, animal waste, human waste, and it's a funny thing. It's distasteful. Most people don't really want to hear about this and talk about it, particularly in relation to their food production. And yet we think it's essential. So in a way, this is part of the communication exercise with the public, that if they have it explained to them why we're doing this and how in fact it is part of traditional societies have always done this, and nowadays, because we're much more scientifically adept at measuring what's in things, so we know exactly whether there are contaminants in the materials we're processing, and as long as we've got good standards and good processes for doing this, there's a communication exercise to persuade the public that this is a good thing to do and it should be done. Farmers, I think, are absolutely ready to accept this, but any product, fertiliser that they're going to use, of course it's got to be able to do the job, and they've got a yardstick against which to measure it, which is mineral fertiliser, where you know exactly what you're buying in that bag. We've got to reach the same stage with these recovered products.
How is the European consumer going to view it? I mean, I'm sure they can appreciate every tonne recovered as a tonne less leaked, but as you say, I mean, it is slightly distasteful.
It is. The funny thing is that when you look at the statistics, that in some member states that most sewage sludge, it's got horrible names, all this stuff, gets back onto agricultural land. It's controlled as to which land, in what ways and how frequently. In other countries, almost none does. And yet we're all Europeans, and so I'm optimistic that with the right information and without pushing these things in an abrasive or aggressive way, that over a period of time we can and should recover more of these nutrients.
Changing the current resource-intensive model is also, of course, about changing our behaviour as consumers and diet.
This, to my mind, is one of the real challenges, that when we look at nutrient flows, and it's only relatively recently that the scientists have been able to map what happens to all of that nitrogen and phosphorus that we apply to land, and tracking it through, and a horrific amount of it goes down into waters and up into the atmosphere with some quite seriously bad effects. And so doing something about this, therefore, I think we can sell the message we need to. Here's the hard news, or the bad news story. Livestock account for about 60 or 70% of this leakage. And in a way, the message is, do we really have to consume as much livestock product? Can we not persuade consumers that everybody likes meat and dairy products, but in moderation, please? Because if the world continues to grow at its current rate and dietary change continues as it has done, we're simply going to poison our oceans. and this is a serious greenhouse gases associated with
And
this.
poison our air as well. I
Yeah,
know in the
preci-
Evening Standard in the UK last night, air pollution and its effect particularly on children. Children seem to be a focus in your debate just now, mutually amongst the forum, that actually looking at the SDGs and 2030 as the target there, that these will be the children of today will be those consumers of tomorrow.
Exactly, and that's why we have to start with these messages in the school, in the curriculum, in the science curriculum, in the curriculum about food, which it should be in there, in the way that school meals are prepared and discussed, and so on. I mean, obviously we'd like parents to be doing this, and it may be that even before the kids can get this information, that we need to ensure that teachers and teachers training colleges know about these messages. Integrating these sorts of aspects of science into scientific syllabus should be very straightforward. I mean, teachers usually want good examples that are accessible, and what's more accessible than food?
Final word then, because one of the messages has been to get rid of the silo thinking, so in terms of linking education with public health, with agriculture and production and farming and rural activity, the linkage is clear every year at this forum, but particularly has a light shining on it this year. Final word, Alan.
It has, and it's difficult, and so therefore we've got to keep worrying our way at it. And in a way, old boys like me find it the hardest because we're brought up in these silos.
Keep worrying away. Thank you very much, Allan Buckwell. Enjoy the rest of the forum.